What's going on, people? This is Balaji, and welcome to another edition of the Demand Wars. Now, let me set this up for y'all. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, working with some of your favorite artists, Fat Joe, Shaggy. He gave Sales Hacker SEO love, helping him grow 400% and get acquired by Outreach. He helped Nextiva grow to $200 million ARR almost entirely from demand gen and inbound. He's an SEO and growth advisor to Gong, Cognizant, Alice, Centisum. He's a hustler, baby. Woo! Just want you to know, come on, the Bocelli of brand growth, the Romeo Santos of search. He's not a player. He just SEOs a lot. If you listen too quick, you might lose it. Radically candid, run and gun, Bronx stand up, 305 stand up. Please help me welcome Gaetano DiNardi. What's up, G?
Wow.
What up?
Man, you just got me so hype on a Tuesday morning, dude. Nobody has ever come even close to that great of a quality introduction, man. Now I got to really bring it because that was the lifetime welcoming, man. That was unbelievable.
Hey, your reputation precedes you, man. The man, the myth, the legend in the building. You represent like so many intersections, man, from the Italian heritage to, a little unknown kid from the Bronx breaking into B2B, now representing the 305 in Miami. We just talked about that. My wife is from that part of the country.
Yeah, 305. What up?
Man, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show. G, it's been a pleasure watching your rise in B2B marketing over the past several years. People might think you've been around for like a couple decades. You haven't necessarily you're not as long in the tooth as some of these other people running marketing, and yet you've been able to become an authority fairly quickly. Why do you think that is?
Man, that's a huge question. I think, I started, and by the way, I can't say enough, thank you again for having me in that intro. Unbelievable. The Bocelli of, I forgot what you said, but
the Bocelli of brand growth.
Bocelli of brand, the Romeo Santos of SEO, dude. You're at another level, man. Now to the point of like, how did I cover a lot of ground in this game? I think experience in fast growing companies counts for a lot. So startups. I started my career at an agency working with Mike King at iPoRank, a phenomenal SEO company. And from there, I really worked at early stage startups from, under 10 million in revenue annually. And I stayed there. And I think when you start your career in those buckets versus going big brand, enterprise, category leading giant companies, it accelerates the speed of which you learn, grow, and can thrive in your career. And so, 2 years spent on a startup is like 5 years spent at like a big company. So when you do agency, you do multiple startups, and early stage high growth companies, 4, 5, 6 years of doing that is really like 12 years. In comparison to marketers who maybe start their career in the Fortune 500s or the very large scale companies. And so in a nutshell, I would credit it to mostly that. And then of course, just my hustler, scrappy, New York immigrant mentality. That's also a big part of it.
I want to talk about that aspect a little bit, Gaetano, because, you've enjoyed working at challenger brands and you've tended to bring something different, man, from what a lot of other marketing leaders have brought. You have such a rich tapestry of background. How is it from the music production to, you rapping to the Italian heritage? How have you sort of brought all of these things? A lot of times we tend to, especially people who are not necessarily the majority, we tend to keep those things compartmentalized. What gave you the permission almost to bring your experience like as an indie artist into the world of SEO?
Yeah, dude, the way you phrase these questions and summarize them in position, dude, you did your homework on me, by the way. I'm really shocked. You went real deep, man. I tip my hat to you. Props.
No doubt.
Not many go this far into preparation. So I really applaud you for that.
Thank you.
So, with regard to like, the music industry background and bringing it into the marketing game, believe it or not, there's so much intersection between those two. It's kind of crazy to not bring your learnings and experiences from being an indie music producer, indie songwriter to the B2B marketing game. So think about it. If you're a new or upcoming producer on the grind and you're trying to get your music out there, there's no demand capturing to be done. You can't capture demand for something that doesn't exist. So you have to create your own demand as indie producer and songwriter. It's just plain and simple. That's how you have to go about it. And so when you apply those same kind of mindsets to B2B growth marketing, it's kind of the same thing. The only exception is you're selling something that probably has a bottom of funnel component to it. So I worked in voice over IP, CRM, a lot of commodity products, identity theft protection, all that shit has demand that has to be captured. That's one side of it. But when you bring the more creative side of, damn, I was an indie musician that had to become known somehow. So what did I have to do to make that happen? That was a natural kind of, way to transition all that stuff into B2B marketing. So the problems are kind of similar in, when you zoom out and just look at it from that lens.
Right. That's interesting. I heard somebody say once that by the time someone, let's say one of these marketing gurus, is teaching a method to the masses, that the odds of that method still working, at least at that same level of efficacy, are pretty low. Something like SEO, it seems like that was a big growth lever for you at the first couple of companies that you worked at. But as we enter 2023, it feels like buyer behavior is shifting somewhat. And I'd love your take on whether some people ask, is SEO dead? I think you've clearly stated SEO is not dead. But yet, for example, if you were growing Nextiva today or Sales Hacker today, might SEO still have that same punch that it had when you were driving the bus?
Wow. All right. So this is great, man. I'm glad you brought it up. The thing is, the SEO now, if you're a brand that is slightly more established and you have a little bit of momentum, you can really continue to ride that wave. Where it gets really hard is if you're a complete newcomer at the very bottom of the mountain and you have a huge, uphill battle in front of you. Then I think it's really tough. But even then, there's still things you can do. You can target the extreme long tail. You can find much narrower versions of things that you can write about and rank for that are not as competitive as the most obvious, go-to kind of chunky head term competitive things that every other big company is targeting.
Yeah.
So in one example I always talk about, where I had to go as extreme long tail as I could because it was so competitive, was identity theft. So I wouldn't even rely on a typical keyword research tool because they won't even give you the kind of things you need to rank for. So I started using auto suggest, and I'm gonna just play around with it right now to refresh my memory. But I remember doing content strategy for very long, very 7-8 phrase long queries. So things like,
Lord.
Yeah. So check this out. What can hackers do with your blank? And then work your way down the line.
Whoa, that's a rabbit hole.
That's a massive rabbit hole. Can someone steal your identity with blank? Work your way down the line. Yeah. What happens if a scammer has your blank? Right? And you just work your way down the line.
But I've heard you talk about the not necessarily using volume to choose your keyword. Like the volume for those keywords, it's not necessarily going to be massive.
It's going to be probably less than 10 searches a month when you factor in all the variants and whatnot, maybe 10 to 20. But the thing is, like, I relied on listening to sales calls to get a lot of that information. So I would use Gong, for example, and go through the call transcriptions and start typing some of these things in, like scammer found my, scammer has my, what can happen if, dark web, all this kind of shit. And then you start to see the patterns and you start to listen to the tone in these people's voices, which is pure fear.
Right.
And from that point, it's like, oh man, we have to be found for this, because this is a pain point micro moment, which inevitably will lead to interest in the product. And so that was really my process for driving quality SEO results, not so much focused on volume, like you said. And if I had to do Sales Hacker again from scratch or Nextiva again from scratch, I would just follow the similar process where, instead of going for big chunky head terms, I would find the long tail pain points and just hit that.
That's wild, man. That's wild. And those are the sort of the strokes of gray, the shades of gray in between the black and white declarations that people often will make on LinkedIn. So this is helpful. Okay. So, the people have spoken. They said they wanted to get G on the show, On Demand Wars, and they don't want us to give you the softballs, man. They want to come with the hard hitting because they think you can take it.
All right. Man, I'll swing the bat. I'm ready for a couple tough curveballs, man. Go
All right, man. Cool. So we're going to put Gaetano in the hot seat right now. The first question on Demand Wars is desert island marketer. So you've been dropped on a desert island. No food. You got to hunt for your own food, find your own water, build your shelter. But listen, we still want you to drive our go-to market. You have $1,000 a month budget. You got a laptop. You got Wi-Fi. Don't ask how you have Wi-Fi on the desert island.
All right, that's built into the package.
There you go. This is a Richard Branson island. All right.
Okay.
So, Gaetano, what we're trying to get at here, people, is for marketers, especially in the new year, where we might be in a recession. There's a lot of layoffs. Budgets are being cut. So for marketers with very limited budgets, how do they creatively work inside of this box? Help us out, man. What do we do?
All right, cool. So I thought about this beforehand, and I got a cool breakdown of what I would do with $1,000 a month marketing budget.
Got it.
And I wrote a lot about this in the past of, you don't need a big marketing budget to do great shit. You know what I mean? You can actually get crafty and do a lot with very little. And so here's just a flow of what I would do if it were me. So I obviously, assuming that I need to buy a domain, launch a website, you can do all that for free on WordPress or Webflow. All right. I would start a podcast, exactly what you're doing. I would record the audio and video on Zoom, extract the audio, host that on Libsyn or Anchor FM. I think that's very, very low cost, or potentially I think it's even free on Anchor FM. I would edit and chop up the video myself using iMovie or QuickTime. Edit the audio myself using GarageBand. All right. So far, all free things you can be doing. It just takes effort and time. Assuming I still already have my LinkedIn street cred, I would use that to my advantage and reach out to like the top 100 people I would want to be my dream customers and invite them to be a guest on my podcast. I would repurpose all those episodes onto my YouTube channel. I would summarize that content in a Twitter thread, repurpose it for a LinkedIn video post with actionable takeaways. I would do a blog article recap page. Use all that momentum to build newsletter subscribers. So the idea is that I'm building an audience before I actually try and go sell shit.
Oh, wow.
So then I would ask each podcast guest to refer someone else in their network who should also come on the show. And then from there, I'd focus on long tail pain point SEO. So a lot of the things that I just mentioned regarding like what can a scammer do with I would basically try and find those insights based on the conversations I'm having in my podcast interviews. And assuming that I am the subject matter expert or I know enough about it, I would write it all myself because I don't have budget to hire writers. If I'm not the subject matter expert and I can't write it myself, what I do is just go and interview more people and figure out how to write it, or figure out a way to get other people to write it for me and incentivize them with some kind of favor. So I'd follow this process for pretty much like a year straight. And then after a year, I'd probably have over 100 new website pages. I'd ideally have around 40 to 50,000 organic visitors per month coming to my website. I'd have over 50 podcast interviews in the books, completed, repurposed, and circulating online. I'd ideally have at least 10,000 newsletter subscribers. And all of this would cost less than $1,000 a month combined. less than $10,000 to $12,000 a year, you can get all this going just with one very hungry person that's driven and committed to win. And that's what I would do.
That's wild. That's wild. You mentioned a number of tools, Gaetano. You mentioned a number of channels. And one of the things that I remember you talking about was the fact that a lot of people are looking for shortcuts these days. I think everybody would love that picture you painted at the end of the 12 months. But we all want that now. Or can I get that in 3 months or 2 months? You've actually advocated, G, for people to do the things like learning how to create a Twitter thread, learning how to edit in GarageBand. Is that really a good use? I mean, we could hire somebody on Fiverr to do it. Is that the right use of a B2B marketer's time?
That's a very fair point, honestly. And at some point you probably will need to get some help, right? Like you probably could outsource a lot of that to, Fiverr, right? Like, audio editing or video editing, for example. But at the end of the day, how much time is that really going to save you? You know what I mean? I think it's very marginal. In comparison to the big picture, right? Like maybe it's just because I'm a hustler and I can fly through this and I got a music background and I can do this myself.
Yeah.
I know how to edit audio in less than like 10 minutes. I know how to chop up video and repurpose it in less than 5 minutes. So it takes me barely any time at all to really do this stuff. Where I think if you were to explain this to like a corporate marketer at a big company, they'd see this and go into extreme panic. Right. I need weeks and months to plan. I need resources. I need budget. I need a storyboard. I need, a Gantt chart, whatever it is. Like, I just don't really need any of that stuff. I can just go and do it. That's just me.
There's a story that's going viral today, Gaetano, about this AI chatbot and how people have started. It got released a few days ago. It was even on Trevor Noah's show, The Daily Show, and they're talking about how this thing is so lifelike and realistic, and there are always these concerns about how many jobs it's going to replace. It strikes me that for a lot of stuff that you're talking about, you spent maybe years building up those or developing those skills to learn how to edit audio and video and do these other things. Now you're proficient at it. A lot of us look at your proficiency. We're like, well, I don't have 2 years to spend or 3 years before, in order to get proficient. But I think the concern is that those of us who don't continue to evolve our skills are either going to get replaced by, a 13-year-old who's great on TikTok or this doggone AI chatbot. How do B2B marketers continue to stay in this hustler mode, in this learning mode?
That is a tough one, man. So I don't know if AI is good enough yet to replace anyone or take away people's jobs. But I mean, I've played around a lot with the OpenAI chat GPT.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I see what it's capable of doing. And I think it makes, certain processes accelerated. So for example, right, let's use the example we just talked about on me being on a remote island. And one of the core ways I'm going to drive audience growth and basically gain visibility is through a podcast. In order to have a successful podcast, as you do this, you got to do the research in advance and you got to have questions prepared. Now, sometimes you can have just a template of questions that you ask over and over again, but sometimes you might want to make those questions different. So I'm actually looking at the OpenAI chat GPT right now, and there's a model here called default essay outline, which you could probably use to give yourself an outline for a podcast interview series.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just going to try it right now in real time. Let's try this. Create an outline for an essay about, let's do B2B marketing, and let's just see what it spits out. And I'm going to increase the length because sometimes it cuts off because the length of the answer is too short. So I increase the length. And let's just see what it spits out.
We're doing it live. Doing it live, folks.
Doing it live. All right. So it says, what is the definition? How do you define B2B marketing? How do you get more reach? How do you improve customer relationships? How do you increase brand awareness? What are the challenges of B2B marketing? What are some things that may be too costly? How do you improve long sales cycles? How do you develop a more comprehensive marketing plan? How do you focus on relationship building in your marketing? How do you conclude with all of this by giving us summarized benefits and challenges of B2B marketing? And what are some key takeaways for a successful B2B marketing strategy? So you can see a lot of repetitive, stuff in there, but at least it gives you a skeleton to start with. Whereas like a lot of people start with a blank canvas.
That's
and they're like,
right.
all right, I don't know where to go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it can enhance as opposed to replace good marketers.
I think it can enhance a couple of things. Yeah, like for example, things like creating content outlines for briefs, right? For writers' briefs, or coming up with interview questions for candidates that are coming in for a job, or podcast interview notes. It can do a lot of that kind of stuff that we used to have to grunt through manually, or just slog through. But it can just accelerate a lot of that crap.
Fascinating. I like that. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that was a really interesting sort of perspective on how marketers can operate in a box when they're limited by budget. We want to put you into the next frame of mind now, G, to think about the limit being time. So you're a head of growth or head of demand gen, and you've been asked to create demand fast. We want to see you answer this question, how you would create demand fast in 3 different ways. In 3 days, that's the Tasmanian Devil special. In 3 weeks, the Roadrunner special. And then in 3 months, the Power Walker special. So 3 days, that's really extreme. But you actually mentioned recently that a CEO asked you to generate leads and it was close to the end of the quarter. So what would you do if you had 3 days to create demand?
All right. I don't know how good these answers will be. I kind of just spitballed them off the top of my head when I was plopping my notes down, but I'll take a stab at it, see where we get. All right. So 3 days. I'm a pay Drake to. I'm assuming money's not an issue.
It's not an issue.
I'm gonna pay Drake to. Yeah, I'm gonna pay Drake to rap about my brand. So he got a song that came out called "Middle of the Ocean." The opening line was, "I'm in the Missoni room at the Biblos." As soon as Drake mentions Biblos, now all of a sudden all the Biblos restaurants are blown up, right?
Wow.
He even had in that song Jumpman, Nobu. As soon as he said that, Nobu, now you can't get a reservation at Nobu anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So who did Future did a jingle for a brand? I can't remember I can't remember it, but anyway, rappers doing jingles, right? I would do something like that if I needed to just like get on the map immediately. I would do that. Pay Snoop Dogg to do a commercial for me, something like that. That's the 3 day, create demand special. Pay a rapper to just put me on. You got anything on that?
I was gonna say it reminds me of what's the name of this website? Is it a Cameo or something like that? Where it was big a couple of years ago, where you would pay celebrities to basically record a 30-second video for your brand. Yeah. And those people used to be completely inaccessible for most of us up until recently. A combination of social media and some, innovative brands. Some of these people actually, you could get at some of these folks.
So to that point, I actually tried that tactic. Listen to this. I paid a couple of celebrities, I'm not going to mention their names, but to create like hype videos about the product and the brand.
Yeah.
And I would put that on landing pages. I would embed that video in the landing pages that we're driving paid traffic to. And we would say, look what X is saying about us, right? As just a way to run experiments against paid traffic. The reality is that all those pages lost. It didn't matter that we had celebrity endorsements. The pages that actually explain the value of the product did better.
Interesting.
So maybe that's not a shocker, but anyway.
Right. So 3 days is going to be tough.
That Cameo move flopped.
It's going to be tough. It sounds
3 days is going to be tough. Yeah, 3 days is going to be tough. 3 weeks, I'm going to go with a trick that I learned in the direct-to-consumer marketing game. I would go and sponsor all the top YouTube influencers. So when I was working in identity theft, we would sponsor Anthony O'Neill, We would sponsor Alpha Male. We would sponsor the dude that does the scam baiter. And that would drive double-digit overnight signups and revenue like
Wow.
candy. That was like candy. Yeah. So it's expensive, but it absolutely works. You know, another idea I threw in there was like, go sponsor Joe Rogan's podcast or something like that, right? Find something that is highly relevant from an audience overlap perspective that has massive reach and credibility, and just go pay to be on that shit. Yeah, and then the 3-month program, the one that you mentioned here, I'll take a rip out of the Nextiva playbook. Is I would go and sponsor all the top affiliate websites and pay the highest cost per click to be at the top of those affiliate listings.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's immediate overnight pipeline of revenue, signups, just guaranteed, but you just got to pay a lot for it.
Interesting. It strikes me that with a lot of these techniques, we are essentially borrowing from individuals or organizations who already have existing trust with our audience. They already have an affinity with our audience. They've built an audience for themselves already. And it almost seems to underline the fact that, okay, if you need to create demand fast, you got to go borrow somebody else's authority or affinity. Maybe we should be thinking about building our own. You've talked about filling the future funnel, which is a term I ain't never heard anywhere before, G. But you talk about filling the future
come
funnel.
Come on, man. You got to do it. You got to do it. So, I mean, dude, to the point of like borrowing somebody else's credibility, to an extent, that's what musicians are doing to get put on the map, right? Like, think about it. If you're a new rapper, what do you got to do? You got to go open up for, 21 Savage somehow, or Kodak Black, or whoever is relevant to your audience.
Yeah,
You got to go get on all the Spotify playlists, which are already popular. So you got to get into that rotation. You got to get on radio, which already has a captive audience. You got to get on all these YouTube music shows, live Tiny Desk concerts, like all that shit. PR, blog, placed on blog articles, top lists of new artists coming out on Complex, whatever, right? Like that's all kind of in the same vein as what you need to do to borrow other channels to capture and create demand from a business standpoint. So it's the same playbook that musicians use, just applied to business.
That's dope. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I remember hearing about everyone from, Lil Wayne to 50 Cent to even, Eminem and all these other rappers who are big now, but they all started out trying to, I guess, borrow some of that authority. In 50's case, he kind of went at it a little different. He basically was dissing. He tried to diss the biggest people possible.
He went the contrarian route. Speaking of 50, I just saw him in Miami. I went to his concert the other night. Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, the guy, he works as hard as he did when he didn't have any money. So he's got amazing work ethic. I saw that and was actually really inspired. But I mean, think about it. Like, so that's why so many independent artists, they want to get signed to a major label. Because the major label is going to put the quote unquote machine behind it. And if you go the independent route, you don't have access to that machine. You have to go do it yourself.
True.
And so actually this is kind of relevant to B2B. If you are funded by the most powerful investors who have all the craziest connections, and on your board of investors or on your board of executives, you have, the former chairman of Walt Disney and all these like super mega powerful connected people, that significantly increases your chances of success in the business because you're going to be thrown into a machine, right? That's why startups are very similar to the independent artists, because they're not going to get that same support because they don't have a machine. So the alignment and the analogies here between like the music biz and, growth marketing and B2B is actually quite astonishing if you really zoom out and think about it.
That is wild. I never even thought about all of those connections. Very true. I've had the opportunity to work at a
Yeah.
number of startups as well. And you can see, you can sort of sense the presence of the VCs, the board of advisors, and how they are able, they have a very large influence on how well that company is able to grow. With that being said, Gaetano, I'm thinking about if we jump into this next concept of it's marketing like a media company. I'm thinking about a lot of those artists who started out as indie artists, Master P, P Diddy, 50, but then built their own media companies. Is there a way that B2B marketers can almost start to think about, okay, if I want to start to build a media company within my brand, how should I go about doing it?
Yeah, dude. And you know, this is going to come down to the I know you see this I don't want to call it a divide, but a clear drawing of the line between capturing versus creating demand.
Mm.
And the way you measure each of those things is quite different. And one of the biggest disconnects in B2B marketing, as I'm sure you already know, is you know, companies and teams, and really it stems from executive pressure and mindset to measure content creation from a brand and demand creation standpoint like you would performance marketing. So you measure them incorrectly. You measure everything like performance marketing, and then when something isn't working, you know, you just say, well, it's not working. But in fact, the shift in terms of, you know, how do you market more like a media company, you change the way you measure. So you focus a lot more on engagement and leading indicators, because I'm gonna go back to the musician thing. We don't have a you know, there is no you know, buying CDs anymore, right? Or I mean, there's a lot of different conversion points, if you will, you know.
True.
And a lot of it is engagement and leading indicator focus. So it's things like number of subscribers on your YouTube channel, number of subscribers to your email list, number of followers that you have on social platforms. It's things like your brand mentions in media, the amount of coverage you're getting on, you know, offsite channels, the amount of placements you're getting on, you know, performance stages, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then the lagging indicator is really like, you know, I guess you could say streams, playlist statistics, right? How many people are coming to your shows and maybe buying tickets to see you live, buying your merchandise, right? And then there's other ancillary ways of making money, things like, you know, sync licensing and getting your music placed in movie and TV and film and making revenue through those channels, affiliates, sponsorship deals, right? Those are the lagging. But when you think about it, they're running their brand like a media business, and they're focusing on leading indicators. And if businesses did that too, they would focus on creating engaging content, not content that for social that's meant to capture leads or lead gen. It would be about engagement. So the North Star metrics would be things like, you know, all the things I basically just said for musicians.
Right.
So I could go down the list, but, you know, it's better usage of all these channels to create engagement and followership versus short-term lead gen that is probably premature and not ready to be sold to.
That's really interesting. You had mentioned this term vanity metrics recently, and over the past maybe 5-6 years, that is a very pejorative term because it essentially mentioned empty metrics, almost metrics. This is when marketing was known as the pretty picture department, and sales had no respect for marketing. But it feels like the pendulum is starting to swing as buyer behavior is shifting. And as you talk about leading indicators, you've mentioned brand search volume, clicks for your brand plus product, increase in direct traffic. Just like the music artist, where nobody's buying CDs anymore, but being included on Spotify playlists is a much better indicator. It feels like B2B marketers who are forward thinking actually do need to shift those metrics if they want to keep up with the way buyers have evolved.
Super spot on, my friend. I'm so happy you went and dug that up. But yeah, man, I mean, you think about it. You need to know the front end metrics to have a sense of what can happen on the back end.
Mm.
And all these marketing teams are just so focused on the stupidity of, yeah, all marketing needs to be revenue focused. I'm a revenue focused marketer. If it's not about revenue, it's vanity. You know, how many times do you hear stupid shit like that? And it's like, well, yeah, isn't that obvious?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. So, of course, all those leading indicators are great things to look at. And it's also about thinking how to use the channel in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
When when you're doing video advertising on social networks, and let's say you're in identity theft, it's going to be really, really hard to convince somebody to sign up for identity theft protection through a Facebook video ad. You can't fear monger them into becoming in market. Ads and marketing materials don't suddenly change somebody's mind and make them say, oh yeah, I do need to be in market now. I do need to go and commit to this very important subscription-based thing that I need to be highly engaged with and find a lot of value from and make it a part of my life tech stack. Right? Like it doesn't change. Like, dude, I'll give you another example. I've been hearing a lot about the sleep app, the 8 sleep app. Have you heard of this thing where it monitors your sleep and like gives you insights and helps you sleep better, whatever? It's been on my mind now for like months, maybe even longer. And every time I see someone talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's another inch forward that I got to think more about maybe exploring this, right? But look how long it's taking for me to take action. And I keep seeing it, I keep hearing about it, and I'm still not taking action. So this is the same concept, man. This is really the same concept. And so I don't know if that 8 sleep ring has a way of measuring, how often I think about buying them. They probably have some signal, but the fact that I'm even talking about them and thinking about it is a sign that yeah, other people are talking about it. It's spreading, right? How else am I mentioning them right now? And so I think that's maybe the point on this is that marketing takes a while, especially in long, complex sales cycles. Your marketing doesn't suddenly change someone's mind, and just looking at it from revenue only is a very short-sighted way to run a program.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love the examples that you're able to come up with, Gaetano. I think a lot of B2B marketers, especially those at challenger brands or high growth startups, do find themselves in this place. I like to call it the sunken place. Shout out to Jordan Peele's Get Out movie. We're almost trapped in this place where there's demand capture and there's demand created. We know we need to create an engaging brand and engaging content. But the metrics, the executives are saying, where's my leads? Where's my pipeline? I want this revenue yesterday. So how are B2B marketers supposed to manage this juxtaposition, this dichotomy, where it's like, okay, I need to create programs that 6 months from now it's like digging a well. 6 months from now, we're going to be good. But within those 6 months, my manager is thirsty. It's like, so where does the water come from?
All right, man. Well, I don't know if I have a great answer, but I'm gonna just, blurt it out and see where we go. So first of all, when you talk about demand capture, you need to be confident that this program is like plateauing, or you've maxed out all possible demand capture efforts, and you're running as efficiently and as high quality as you possibly can across bottom of funnel SEO, paid search, affiliate marketing, working with aggregator and review websites to drive more demand. Those are really the core things: website optimization and conversion rate testing. Are you getting as much squeeze out of the existing traffic that you already have? If you're not firing on all cylinders across those buckets of things that I just mentioned, that means you probably have a ton of room for improvement, and you're not even coming close to capturing as much demand as you could or should be. And so you start there, right? Before you start, wondering how to get out of this sunken place.
Yeah.
Don't just assume, all right, well, yeah, we're capturing demand and we're doing a great job. You're like, every single company I've audited is not doing a good job with this. They're doing maybe some aspects good, but there's always tons of waste and inefficiency and ways to make this more effective. So that's the first thing I'll start with. Once you nail that, or you feel like you're close to nailing most of that, I would recommend running a declared intent audit of all website CTAs. Because you need to be realistic about, if I'm this traffic source going to this page, clicking to this CTA with this language, what should I expect as the end user of that experience? Is what I'm about to experience a proper flow? How should I be treated if I'm coming through a retargeting funnel on a free trial checkout page that says get started?
Right.
Well, I should be able to just get started. I shouldn't click get started and then have to go do something else.
Right.
Conversely, conversely, if you're showing me a video ad on LinkedIn about how you helped a company do XYZ with your product or service, and the call to action is learn more, I shouldn't be redirected to a forum that says talk to sales.
Yep.
Learn more is not talk to sales. Learn more means learn more.
Yep.
So all that shit needs to be in order. And the way you follow up, the way you segment, the messaging, the content experiences that happen after that, the expectation from marketing and sales on what these people actually want, all that shit needs to be aligned. And with every single company I've audited, that is usually almost always out of whack. There's always wacky things going on with all that stuff. And maybe we'll pause there because there's a lot to unpack, but that's what comes to mind when you talk about how do I get away from that sunken place and get into a more, rhythmic machine that actually makes sense and both sides are kind of firing on the right cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really insightful. I love the emphasis on doing an audit, a declared intent audit. I hadn't heard it phrased that way before. That way you actually find out, okay, what's the gap? What's the delta between what we thought we were doing with our demand capture and where we actually are? And you need to close that delta. I've also, though, G, seen you talk about how you would structure a modern marketing team if you were structuring it from scratch and you broke it up into 5 groups. You separated the demand capture folks from the demand creation folks. I don't know too many companies that are doing that. And so if you say, okay, we need to go all in on demand capture and get that right, is it the same person wearing both hats, or is it almost different skill sets that you need to separate?
This is completely different skill sets. This is completely different mentalities. This is different measurement system. Everything about it couldn't be more different. And to your point, you don't know many companies doing this. You're right. There aren't many. One company that I am working with right now, I got to give them a quick shout out and a quick plug, Cognism. Cognism, they're doing it right.
Yeah,
they have the team broken up into demand capturers and demand creators. They don't even. So one thing I also love that they're doing is something called always on demand nurturing, which basically means that instead of putting you into a sales focused automated email funnel,
right?
What they do is they just send you bi-weekly great content. And that's all they do. And they segment that between their sales persona and their marketing persona. Those are the 2 main buckets of people that would become Cognism customers. Right. And they do a phenomenal job with that. But anyway, back to the team structure thing. Demand captures, paid search, free trial optimization, product-led growth, right? Landing page testing, affiliate marketing, review sites, aggregator websites, long tail bottom of funnel SEO, influencer campaigns, sponsorships, all these things that are easier to track, shorter time to revenue. The intent is there for these are people who are problem aware, solution seeking people. You market to them in a certain way, and the channels that people go about researching and finding those solutions and buying are through those channels.
Yeah.
On the other side, brand marketing, product marketing, messaging and positioning, storytelling, evangelism, social, video, podcasts, webinars, community, events, PR, comms. I keep going on and on. Audio channels, right? Like all this stuff is the story. This is the awareness driving and the education of the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
This is not marketing to problem aware solution seeking people. This is marketing to the non-market, out of market buyers, future buyers, right? So you separate all the people doing that shit.
Yep.
Then you have another bucket. I actually don't see many people, proposing this, but I believe the operational managers should be in their own bucket. Sales ops, marketing ops, revenue ops, sales enablement, ABM, even data ops and analytics. This is a different skill set, different mindset. These are the plant manufacturers. These are the people, striking the hammer and, twisting the tools, right? Yep. They're making this shit work. These are the widget manufacturers. Right. Then you have the creative house, designers, illustrators, UX, video, front-end dev, web project management. This is completely different than all the other things we talked about. They need to stay in their creative house and do creative shit. And the demand captures and creators are basically the order requesters, and the creative house has to go and fulfill those requests. Not to say that it's super one-sided. There has to be great collaboration between those two teams, but the mindset and the premise has to be that the creative house is there to fulfill the requests and the needs of the rest of the marketing team.
Yeah.
And so that is my quick rant on how I would, structure it all and break it down, those buckets.
I mean, that's really fascinating. It's been exciting to watch a few voices in the B2B marketing space advocate for an evolution of our practice. And I've been watching, Chris Walker and others have started to beat this drum for the past 2 years. I actually discovered you, G, on Chris's show, State of Demand Gen, a couple of years ago, and been following you ever since.
Thanks, man.
That's like one of those collabos, right?
That was a big one. Yeah, that was a big one.
You got a verse on State of Demand Gen. I was like, I need to buy his whole album. You know what I'm saying?
I was a feature. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So it's been cool to watch the evolution, and I think some companies like Cognism are on the bleeding edge. Shout out to Alice, Fran, and the rest of the team over there. But I think a lot of other companies might be a little slower in separating out these skill sets. With that in mind, Gaetano, I'd love to focus on demand creation specifically. So as we go into the new year and people are thinking about their fiscal plans, their marketing plans for the year, what are 5 things you would recommend B2B brands include on their demand creation plan?
Love it, man. All right. Well, I'm going to stick to a lot of the usual suspects, but the podcast or some form of interactive interview live component where it's not so old school webinars used to just be like a presentation with a slide deck, a couple of talking, flapping heads, and a bunch of bored people in the audience not really paying attention, right? I think that format is completely dead. The new webinar is live hangouts. Live hangouts are the new webinar. And, whether you want to do it, in the same style as Chris and I did it for the State of Demand Gen show, where, kind of like what you're doing, you're turning this into a show too. Or serial content, episodic content, whatever you want to call it. But we just had a monthly hangout with, 50 to 100 marketers on a Zoom. And we would start the show with, a couple of opening topics. we'd kick it off with a couple of back and forth rants.
Yeah.
People love a good old fashioned rant these days, and then invite people in and just do Q&A and just riff and jam.
Yeah.
The Thursday night sales with Scott Leese and Amy Volas was a much bigger forum than that, but similar style. They had 100, 200, 300 people showing up to that thing, and so I think I would lead with something like that and then repurpose it across the board. I would go answers marketing. So answers marketing can be really huge, especially if you're in a field where there's like a lot of exclusive communities and a lot of chatter happening, underneath the clouds, so to speak, right? Kind of in the background where it's not as open. So these are things like Slack groups, Discord, I hate to say Reddit, but it is still relevant in certain verticals. Quora, LinkedIn, even just commenting a lot on LinkedIn and dropping insightful comments could be a form of answers marketing. I'd go with events. I'd go with organic and paid LinkedIn, and then I would really top it all off with my forte, which is the long tail pain point SEO. Don't care about search volume. Just write answers to the problems that my audience and prospective customers would be having. And that would essentially be my demand creation flow.
It makes a lot of sense. It's straightforward and it takes advantage of modern buyer behavior. So this is dope. I love it. G, we're running out of time. I want to see if I can get one more question for you in the hot seat. This has been awesome. I actually want to jump to this concept we're calling reality roulette, where we are taking an existing reality show and remixing it with B2B marketers as the stars and potentially the audience as well. So what's one reality show that you might take and remix it for this B2B marketing format?
Oh man. All right. Well, my first initial reaction to this was, that show Wife Swap. I was going to suggest CMO Swap or CEO Swap. Yeah. So you know how it goes. Two CMOs swap different backgrounds from different industries and go manage each other's team for a month. You know what I mean? Now I'll call out that actually because I asked people on Twitter about this and they said, oh, well, the CEO of Moz back in the day, Rand Fishkin, he actually did this with Will Reynolds of Seer Interactive.
No way.
They actually did it. And there was a write-up on this. I think it went published on like The Verge or Wired.com or something like that. But it was a big like thing where they actually answered each other's emails, managed each other's team. Talked to customers. Like it was crazy. So they actually went and did this. And I'm shocked that it hadn't, become a bigger thing. But, that's one angle is the CMO swap. Maybe the other one is, the good old 90-Day Fiance, right? 90-Day CMO.
Oh, my gosh.
90-Day CMO. You got 90 days to prove your value or you're out.
Oh, this is crazy.
Yeah. 90 days to test drive the car before you buy it. That I would roll with one of those two ideas if I had to do reality roulette for a B2B business show.
Yeah, I love both of those concepts because a lot of times you have some of these CEOs or CMOs. I'll give you an example that's outside of B2B. Bob Iger just got rehired at Disney as CEO. And sometimes you have to wonder, is it the car or is it the driver? Would Disney succeed regardless, or is Bob Iger really the Wonder Boy? And so if you're switching CMOs, but everything else stays the same, that would be a fascinating case study. All right, we might have to see if we can get this done in real life. I love it. We're going to have to get you out of here. You've been super generous with your time. Folks, we've been listening to the Bocelli of brand growth, the Romeo Santos of search. He's radically candid. He's run and gun. He's the Don, Gaetano DiNardi. Thank you for being here, G.
Grazie, fratello. Bolaji, you've been one of a kind host. Probably no one ever in my entire time of doing podcast interviews has ever done this amount of upfront work. So, man, I definitely tip my hat to you. And thanks again for having me. This was a very cool and energetic, fun interview. So thanks again.
It's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to share this with the people and see what they have to say. Until then, we'll see you all in the next episode of The Demand Wars. Bye for now.
Peace.